Brain Gain is sponsored by Farmers National Bank and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition.
Hello to everyone and welcome to Brain Gain Navigators. I am your host, Jeremy Leidick, content manager with the Business Journal in Youngstown, Ohio. This is our first Navigators webinar for the year, so welcome back. And today we are visiting our first local company that operates in the 3D printing and additive manufacturing realm, Humtown Additive in Leetonia. Humtown Additive is the sister plant of Humtown Products in Columbiana. 3D printing and additive manufacturing have been major buzzwords in industry in the Mahoning Valley and nationally for the last few years. In fact, from now through 2029, jobs in additive manufacturing are expected to increase by 10%, which is faster than the average for all occupations in the United States. And employers like Humtown are expanding, therefore creating more opportunities for residents to work good local jobs. If you're not familiar with additive manufacturing or 3D printing, no worries, because our guest today will be more than happy to answer your questions. I'd like to first welcome Humtown CEO and President Mark Lamoncha and Human Resources Coordinator Kate Pieplow. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
All right. And good afternoon to everyone joining us. I see more folks filtering in. A little bit later, you'll be hearing from Mark and Kate, who will be ready to answer any questions you have. So as always, be thinking about what you want to ask. But first, I want to play a video of our visit to Humtown Additive, where we got to tour the plant and talk to one of the workers there to get an idea of what he does every day. So enjoy the video, and we will see you in just a few minutes.
This print job consists of 1,396 layers. We're currently on layer 917. I'm technically a 3D cleaner here at Humtown. I was seeking employment here not long ago, approximately a year and 4 months back, and realized that there was 3D technology going on right here in my backyard, essentially, where I grew up, and pretty excited for the fact that they had something like that going on here locally. So there are two gantries running left to right in here. The gantry to the right is the print head gantry. This one here is your recoder. And what the recoder is currently doing is laying a very thin layer of sand across the print table, and it does that layer by layer. Once that layer of sand is laid, the print head comes across and strategically sprays the binder chemical onto the sand, which already contains activator to allow for that sand to be fused together. I hadn't ever personally printed with sand. In fact, I didn't know they were doing it when I first heard of the job. So that was kind of exciting too, to see something different. I've heard of metal printing, and of course at home as a hobby I print with plastic, but to use sand is a whole nother level. We're adding new printers almost every other day, it seems. When I started, we had 4 printers. We're up to right at 14 now already. Now that we've got additional printers, this one here, for instance, I noticed today it's got power on. It's not operational just yet. It's still being assembled, but pretty exciting to see another printer coming to life. Unlike a lot of jobs, because we're 3D printing, these printers run around the clock. So that requires a crew of people willing to work around the clock. We currently run 4 6-hour shifts. I'm on the second shift, or B shift we call it. Of your fluid levels, that's showing the amount of sand currently in your recoder. But this being your activator, again, that is what gets mixed into the sand prior to having the sand spread across the print table. Cleaner, pretty self-explanatory. We've got hoppers stacked up on each of the printers. Generally speaking, they're going to have 4 hoppers per printer. This one's only got 2 because we only run 1 sand system on the printer. You can see the sand supply systems on top of the printer right here. It works off of vacuum pressure. Each printer has an air supply line to it. I believe 120 psi. This is part of our sand supply. Each one of them bags weighs approximately 3,200 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. 32 or 3,400 pounds. Almost always, without a doubt, we have parts ready to come out of the printers too. So this is the actual print box. So if you can imagine this table here lowered essentially right down to the bottom of this box, that's the print area we have to work with. As the parts are printed, there's loose sand around the formed parts. So we use the vacuum, such as this here, to extract and remove the loose sand from around the pieces. A little bit of preparation going into getting the printer turned around. We do a routine cleaning between jobs and set the printer up for the next job to be loaded. This is one of the ways we remove some of the sand off the parts as we're extracting them through use of air nozzles. So it's not all just vacuum. You tend to find different parts printed on a daily basis, some big, some small. Just trying to kind of get in the routine isn't really possible here. It is, but at the same time it's unique because of different size parts and different things we print. We don't just print with sand either. We use several different medias. Some recipes call for different additives mixed in with the sand. We use ceramics. So there again, everything's almost constantly changing. Call this the production room. This is where we take the parts to after they've been extracted from the printers. They'll get checked over for quality assurance purposes and things of that nature. And get them nice and clean, free of any sand that's not supposed to be on them for the customer. It's almost challenging to look at the pieces and try to determine what they are. Sometimes I'll even joke about what I think they might be. These are automobile parts. These look almost to be some form of valve covers, perhaps. These are feet off of an AT-AT. I've been electronic filled virtually all my life. Worked as an electronic field technician for just over 20 years out of the Air Force. And I've been trying to follow the electronic field as much as possible. This is kind of one and the same in many aspects. I get to work with the 3D technology. Hopefully one day I'll be able to help repair the 3D printers as well. Working with Team Humtown, great teamwork, great people to work for and with. Mark's made it nothing but exciting, him and Brandon both, since I've been here. Truly a unique opportunity. I've worked several handful of jobs throughout my days and time, and this is by far one of the more exciting.
All right. That was the world premiere of our tour video at Humtown Additive. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, good job.
Like that?
Well done.
Well, thanks so much for letting us bop around and check things out and meet with all of your fine folks. Good team down there at the Humtown Additive.
Yes, they are.
So I just wanted to, well, first, we're now opening the floor to questions to all of our attendees. If you want to ask a question to Mark or Kate, you can click the raise hand icon down in the bottom of the Zoom screen. And that way you can actually ask it yourself. Or if you prefer to just type it in, there's the Q&A box as well as the chat box. Please feel free to use either of them and I can ask the question for you. But I got a couple of icebreakers. So first of all, Mark, whenever I was visiting you guys down there, you had told me that Humtown Additive goes through what you said, a rail car's worth of sand every single day. How in the heck do you go through that much sand?
Well, we actually go through almost a rail car and a half of sand a week. I'm sorry.
Oh, a week.
corrected that, but it's still a lot
You
of
know what?
sand.
You probably said it the right way.
Well, I
just-
probably really did surprise you with that, but
Yeah.
on the other hand, especially when you're talking about additive manufacturing, even a rail car and a half a week is a lot.
Sure.
Compared, and that's basically commercializing it at that point.
Got you. And how did you first, like, how did the idea, the concept of printing casts with sand, how did you arrive at that? Just kind of take me through those first steps.
Well, we have an amazing ecosystem in Youngstown with the, Small Business Development Center and the YBI that introduced us into the network, that it was actually being done first at the University of Northern Iowa. And my son went out there for about a year and a half before YSU acquired one. And that was originally for making Air Force parts for the C-130 airplanes, as well as other university projects between YSU, Carnegie Mellon, and Penn State.
Okay. And just for everyone's benefit of who's watching and they saw all those wonderful parts, kind of run down the list. What are some of the industries that the folks at Humtown can expect to make products for?
It really falls across all industries. Oil, as far as energy, oil and gas more than, there's somewhat still left in coal. Across transportation industries for, braking parts for trains, engine, the engines that are in trains. And, kind of like James said, there are a number of times where we don't know what they are. And, and most certainly with non-disclosure agreements, even say what they are. But a lot of people say, what are you printing? And we'll say, we're printing the new future for these OEMs, including aerospace and medical, all the different, now you're even talking about hydrogen, and part of the blue, the blue fuels that are inside of gas to make hydrogen. So it's exciting and engaging when we know what all those parts are. But the one that was the most exciting so far was it's allowed them to design an engine now where the head and the block are one without a head gasket or head bolts, which can achieve very high compression rates. So it's almost every day that there's we were limited by design. Now we're only limited by what even Disney called Imagineering, where we can make a better future for many of these industries. And we're excited about being part of that.
Definitely a lot of innovation happening in all the different industries that you're serving. Very cool. And just to be clear, you are not you're not making parts for the Galactic Empire. That's right. So we got a couple of questions here from our attendees. What would you say is your most popular product made?
I would say that right now the most popular part that's being made are turbochargers. The automotive industry, to reduce the weight in cars, has gone from 8 cylinders down to 6 and even 4. And we're amazed by the power that you get by putting, used to be turbochargers were only used, on the racetracks or on the drag strips. But they moved that technology over to where now they can cut the engine size in half and still have pretty good horsepower.
Got you. Very cool. And what kind of jobs does Humtown offer?
So we have a variety of positions at the Humtown additive location in Latonia. Currently, we're looking for 3D finishers, which are the cleaners and the finishers for the parts. And that's kind of where somebody would start coming into the business. But looking for positions there pretty much around the clock. We have 4 shifts that operate out of that facility. So looking for people pretty much everywhere. And that's also where our packaging department is. And that's all of those pieces that you saw require packaging to go around them to be able to ship them safely to the customers. And so our packaging department sorts all those pieces of packaging back that come from the customers and make sure what's usable and going to be safe to be able to send packaging back out to customers with the parts inside.
Okay. And someone who's just starting out, whether they're one of the 3D cleaners, what can they expect to be doing every day? James talked a lot about what he does, but someone just coming in, I mean, break it down for me, brass tacks. What can they expect to be doing every day? And for how long? What kind of hours do you shift?
So our shifts are 6-hour days. We do 6-hour days, 6 days a week. We run Monday through Saturday. And then overtime as people have desire to work it. If they, sometimes people stay over for an hour if they want to pick up a few extra hours, or they'll come in on Sunday if they're looking to pick up some time. But our primary core hours are 6-hour days, 6 days a week. We run a midnight to 6 a.m. shift, 6 a.m. to noon to 6 p.m., and then 6 p.m. to midnight. So that's how it's broken up throughout the day. And then what somebody's day would look like kind of depends upon the work that we have done. And that's one of the awesome things about this type of position. There's basics about the job that are the same every day. So if you have somebody that's going to be in the extracting part of the job, so that's the person that's going to be taking the parts out of the box, their day is going to probably look like they're going to step up to the machine. Here's what's in this particular box. And they're going to go to work with that vacuum cleaner and start to uncover all the pieces. That's what we saw in the video. They get the pieces lifted out of the loose sand and get them packed into pallets to go into our production room to be fine tuned. And their day may involve just going from machine to machine and emptying out boxes. So that might be their day. Or they might start their day at a machine, extracting the parts, and then they may follow those parts into our finishing room and start to fine tune them if that's something that's needing to go out. So it just, in the fine tuning process, they're using air guns and brushes and getting all that loose sand off and packing it out into pallets. So that would be the base of their day. But with an industry like ours, it can be okay at some point throughout the day. It's like any other job, something's going to change.
Sure, sure. And these machines, I mean, they're running 24 hours a day.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you mentioned a couple of the different job types. As someone maybe grows within the company, learns new skills, what are some of the other specific jobs that someone can work there at Humtown?
So once you learn kind of how to extract from the machine, you learn how to fine tune, finish, and pack out products. That's going to be the bulk of it. But then you have somebody like James who has shown, aptitude with the machine itself. So as there became opportunities, he started to learn how to clean the machines and get them ready for that next job to come in. So it's just kind of based off of, if somebody has an interest in learning, a passion for learning will get you everywhere in the world. If you've got a passion to learn the next thing, that's kind of how we do it, and how as opportunities arise, be able to train people, hey, who wants to learn. And you heard him say in the video, he hopes to one day learn how to repair the machines, and that's that drive and that desire to learn more about this process.
Absolutely. And to that point, when it comes to learning, do people need any type of special education to get a job in 3D printing? Can they just learn on the job? Do they need a college degree? How does that work?
So for our company, you don't need any kind of advanced degree. There's things that are helpful, like James. I remember I was the one that interviewed James, and when he came in for one of his interviews, he brought a little 3D plastic turkey that he had made at home. And he was super passionate about it and had learned a lot about 3D printing on the outside. You don't often run into that. It's becoming a little bit more common as people are getting like really interested in 3D printing and additive manufacturing. But you could have somebody come in that has never heard of that before, has never heard of sand, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and could come into it and learn. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but again, if you have that desire to learn, that's really the key.
Got you. And that 3D cleaner, that is your entry level position, correct?
Yeah, I hate calling it entry level because
Sure.
But yes, it would be. I could hire somebody into 3D cleaner that wouldn't have experience ever doing this before.
Right. Okay. And
Well,
what would be? Oh, sorry, Mark. What were you going to say?
I was going to add to that conversation. There's a balance between where they're extracting them and then in the long room where he showed that they're cleaning. But sometimes they do both at the machine, which breaks that up. We also, the way we approach our group of industrial athletes in additive manufacturing is basically we have the production coaches, the line coaches, and then assistant coaches, and then the team members. And as far as advancement, those don't happen as often where that would open up, but each line has a coach and an assistant. And one of the things that I think that in our team is about opportunities for improvement. A lot of people call it problem solving. Well, one thing I love the most is when a machine, if it doesn't work, I mean, we want them to run all the time, but when you're cleaning that machine and you're in there, that sand is constantly wearing out. You're doing predictive maintenance. And that's one of the newer terms out there, is you're looking for what's going to go next and make sure that during that next 18 hours that part isn't going to break. I've always said that you have to find out what it isn't until you find out what it is that is in the problem solving analysis. So for people that really like to figure things out in mechanical, that's what James was aspiring to. And that can be another interesting part, what we do. The packaging, we air freight to South America, to India, and even over into Europe. When you unpack something from Amazon, it's been dropped and it's been shipped. And for some people, that's really fun to figure out how to, after cleaning and extracting, is how do I make it so that I can ship this part out like any part I receive at home from Amazon that's been moved and bumped and jostled, and yet the part still gets there. So, different interests, feed people differently to enjoy what they do during that 6 hours.
Very good. So for someone who is just starting out and is interested in pursuing a career there at Humtown, what is the process for applying to get their foot in the door? And for these different entry-level positions, or these starting positions, let's say, what do they typically pay?
So to apply, we do our applications online. So you go to www.humtown.com. And that's our main webpage, of course. It's got all kinds of videos about what we do, be able to see job descriptions. There's a little button in the top left corner where they can click for employment opportunities and go and read about the jobs that we have open to apply there. So that's how somebody would apply. Our process, we do phone interviews and we do an assessment. Then we do an in-person interview and walkthrough so people can come in and see the environment, see the work firsthand, before they ever make a commitment to be like, yeah, I know for sure this is what I want to do now. Because if you've never worked, especially if you've never worked in manufacturing and you want to make that change to manufacturing, it can be scary. So doing things this way allows us to take the fear away from, okay, this is going to be a really big switch. I've never been in a manufacturing place before, or I've been in a long history of manufacturing places and I want to see what the new environment would be like. So people being able to see it firsthand and they're like, oh, this is what it's like. All right, that's, I can now see myself doing that job. So that's our application process, and how somebody would get in the door. As far as pay rates go, it would be dependent upon, of course, all the different levels have different pay rates, but for a finisher cleaner, on average, the average pay rate in 2021, when we looked at everybody's pay rates, came to right around $15.90 or so. There's incentives built into that, like attendance incentives and some overhead incentives that are built into that to create that amount. But for final pay rate, that's kind of what the average was.
And for someone who's been there for a while, how much can that pay rate increase?
So it depends, like if they're moving from like 3D finisher up into like an assistant production coach or production line coach, then it would increase from there. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but.
And you mentioned coach. Is the coach, is that the individual that is helping folks get started? One of our attendees asked if new employees get a mentor to help them get started. Is it the coach? Is it someone like James who's been there for a while? Who's helping out the newbies?
So it's kind of everybody. We're team oriented, so it doesn't fall on just one person. So the coach is there to obviously answer any questions and guide and keep the line running. Think of it in like a sports team. The coach during the game is kind of on the sidelines. They're calling the plays, but they've got their team out there and each one kind of has their own individual role. If we have a new employee who's working in the production room and they're finishing parts, the coach is going to come and check on them, but the person they're probably going to be relying on is going to be the person working at the station next to them that can help them through their day and be able to answer questions. And it's, we kind of have a thing. It's like, if I don't know the answer, we know who, we can find somebody who does. So questions are always encouraged,
Sure.
especially 3D manufacturing and additive manufacturing. That's kind of the beauty of working in that role. And it's one of the fun things about working in that role is sometimes the answer is, we don't know, let's figure it out together. So it can be that problem solving that helps keep your day interesting.
Awesome. And I just wanted a quick touch on one point. I mean, when we were visiting with James, he made it seem like he was bopping around all day. I mean, are your workers stationary at one machine all day long, or are they bopping around the room?
Depends upon the work that we have. So, it can take, Mark can probably answer a little bit better how long it takes to actually empty out a box at a machine. And some of that's dependent upon, is there one part in that box, or are there 1,000 small parts in the box, and how long is that going to take? So you could have somebody working at the machine in a semi-stationary plant. You have to walk around the box to clean it all out and move parts and whatnot. Same thing in the finishing room. You might be at a downdraft table and working there throughout the day, but you're still going to be moving around to put pieces on pallets and get things packed out. Or you could, do like some of what James does, which is he's bopping from machine to machine to get it turned over for the next person. And our coaches, I don't think, sit still for more than 5 minutes at a time before they're off on the next task. So, so there's some movement and there's some stationary. It just depends.
Okay. And if someone starts out in one area of the shop, maybe they're not digging it so much, they want to move on to another area of the shop, is that possible, or is it pretty much you're just kind of filling whatever need is present that day?
You mean like switching to a completely different job?
Yeah.
So there's opportunities there based off of course, if we have openings in a different department. So at the Latonia location, if you have somebody who, let's say you have somebody working in production, working as a 3D cleaner or finisher, and they're finding that just doesn't really align with what their passions are. But they really love to make order out of chaos and they love to sort things. The better fit for them might be in our packaging department. So if we have an opening, it might be, okay, are you interested in cross training, or maybe even they're interested in moving completely. So it's kind of as we've had openings, to move into leadership roles, to move into different departments. Mark's really great about giving people opportunities to learn as much as they want to. So he has the door open for people to be able to cross train and learn between the two facilities. So it's a 12-minute drive unless you get stopped by a train, but so we even be able to cross train between the traditional core shop and the 3D additive manufacturing. There's opportunities out there as well for people to follow what their passions are.
Well, we've generated some pretty good videos on the Humtown YouTube channel, and it shows a lot more than we had a few years ago. If somebody really, it's kind of like different sports when you try them out when we're younger, is people going, because we don't get that exposure like you're creating here with the Brain Gain, is that when you see it and you don't like it, you're not quitting, you're actually being exposed to something new. I call it tryouts. So that's why, like when Kate said that, don't, if you've been in an office, don't be fearful about coming into manufacturing, because we look at it as a tryout, and if Latonia doesn't work out, we have the Columbiana plant, and you really need to find something you're interested in, whether it's here or wherever, and that's the brilliance of the Brain Gain.
And that's interesting. You brought up that point, Mark, and Kate talked about it a lot too, is just that hesitancy that people might have when considering either starting out in manufacturing or transitioning careers into a manufacturing career. Can you tell me a little bit about, I mean, we could talk all day about how modern manufacturing has changed from what people think manufacturing is, but can you give me a little bit of insight into how additive manufacturing and 3D printing differs from traditional manufacturing, if it differs at all?
It does. And the biggest differentiation would be tooling. So in Columbiana, you have a tooling shop, and the tooling shop makes the die. Then the die has to be mounted onto the machine. Those are all different. Those are different skill sets that over in Latonia, the design is done by the OEM 99% of the time. The files come in, and then you have people. We have a few people that there was a program called Tetris, and there are other ones where if you have good spatial perception, then you're going to be able to nest those in as close as you can together and optimize the print. Past that, we've kind of already talked about the rest of the, the ones that exist, in Columbiana, but, it's important to have that opportunity in front of you so that you can make a decision based on interest level, which one of those might be the best fit for you.
Got you. Okay, so you mentioned spatial perception. What are some other just basic traits, whether it's school subjects or hobbies or just character traits? What's some good knowledge that someone should have to be successful coming into a career like this?
So drop back just for a second with interest, whether it be mechanical or administrative, that's a big separation point, all across, not just at Humtown. But then you get into the, into the mathematics, and accounting. There's a big difference between mathematics and accounting. When you're working manufacturing, if you're working on a 3% margin, if you if you don't count 3 parts, that might be the profit on it. So you could basically you could be a rocket scientist and be very, very good with those things that apply to aerospace engineering, but your counting, it's altogether different. So counting can be more valuable in many parts of the manufacturing process before you get to engineering. And, of course, the keys to the city are learning, the communications with English and being able to read. I mean, you open up a whole world of opportunities with that, but a lot 80-20 rule says, 80% of it that you can learn, on the job. At least, in our facility where there's less engineering, and more methods of manufacturing. Learning how to read a process sheet. I mean, our customers have a certain process that wants to be followed, and some people, are more accountants and follow, like to follow directions, and people in manufacturing are high performance, and it takes an adaptation. I know, I have a high energy level to read those instructions. There's nothing worse than having to make something over again, but our biggest classroom that I encourage, if it happens, and failure is an event, not a person. I would like to say, what did you learn from that? Things that don't go the way we expect when we intend to do good things should never be, be looked down on or talked down to people with that, because, I think the biggest classroom I've ever had was things that didn't work out quite the way I expected. And then you take another approach, and then they do work out. So an optimistic viewpoint is a lot of help. And I'm going to let Kate compliment what I left out.
No, you just hit it on the head. When it comes to, outside of education, being able to keep track of numbers, and you're not dealing necessarily, I don't think I've had to break out my calculus, from high school or anything, too often. So pretty much it's being able to track, okay, how many parts are on this layer? How many layers do I have? How many inches of foam do I have? You're tracking that, and there's a clipboard with, paper, so you can keep your notes and, help keep everything online, because you're going over a 6-hour shift and you want to make sure that you're keeping your numbers and, memory intact. And I don't have a good one, so I'm good at writing things down. But attitude wise, attitude, we've already talked about, is really key. A positive attitude and the ability to say, okay, this didn't work, and that can either, ruin my day or my week or my month or however you want to look at it, or it can be something to, okay, let's try again, and how can we do this differently? So keeping that positive attitude, having persistence, having that willingness to learn. And we like to have fun. There's always laughter and, music playing, somebody's, got things going on as we're, packing out pallets. All of that creates a positive team atmosphere and makes it so you enjoy your workday. And that's attitude is key.
Gotcha. And one of our attendees just asked what you guys do on a daily basis. We've been definitely going over a lot of stuff as far as what the daily job entails, but I think there's always those sort of movements and motions that we take for granted with our jobs because we do them every day and become muscle memory. So what are some of the things that maybe the workers are doing every day? I mean, when we were there, we saw people driving forklifts. We saw them lifting stuff. James was talking about how he's got to keep an eye on the sand quantity and those big hoppers and making sure that, those are always full. And if there's an empty one, get the empty one out of there and go grab a fresh one that's full. So what are some of the things that just every day you can expect to be doing, like little things like that?
So throughout the day, they might, there's your lifting parts and your moving parts around. Anything that's, over 70 pounds, we're using cranes to lift. So learning how to operate the crane to be able to lift up the heavier parts. And some of the problem solving is being able to figure out, okay, how do we slide the bars underneath these parts to be able to lift it properly and safely? So learning how to operate cranes. Learning how to operate forklifts, that one takes a little bit longer. There's special training, there's trained cranes and training with the forklift that has to happen. But the forklifts, the certification process for that is usually we started off with a desire. Somebody has a desire to learn, and then we start to train them on. There's some jobs that it's like, okay, your desire needs to come to drive the forklift because you're really going to need it. It's way easier to move the parts around the shop with a forklift than it is a pallet jack, but you also might use a pallet jack to move parts from place to place. Other types of equipment they might use there, we've got the various vacuum cleaners, air guns, paint brushes, things like that they might use. Broom and a dustpan, we're picking up the sand when we're done. So that's part of the day is cleaning up our work areas. So that would be something that they can count on throughout the day because we're brushing loose sand off of things. It kind of goes everywhere. So we have to clean it up and dispose of it properly. So those are the main things.
I would add in, I call them MacGyverisms. There are so many. It's so much and so exciting to be able to figure things out that seem to be a challenge, as I was talking about earlier. One day, when the parts were put in, they were so close to the table we couldn't get under it. So I went out to Home Depot, got these thin little airbags that you pump up, slid them in there. We pumped it up enough to get the bars in there. And I think that's what's fun, is figuring out things together. It's certainly not always me, but I like to jump in with 2 or 3 other people, and take the letter I and M off of impossible. That's a lot of fun, So, sometimes you're not following the directions. You're following a process, but sometimes you get into these situations, just like, climbing or hiking in that, where you get to figure out that challenge.
For sure. Improvisation is key to problem solving in just about any industry. Got you. So one thing I always ask of our navigators panelists is, because we have younger folks, middle school, high school students, and now this year we actually introduced adult job seekers, so recent graduates or folks maybe like myself who are have worked a career for a number of years and maybe they're looking for a change. But let's kind of focus on the students right now. Middle school students, high school students, are there opportunities for those students to get any kind of early experience in additive manufacturing, whether it's job shadow, internship, just coming in, getting a taste of what you guys do every day, so they can maybe have a better idea of it's something they want to pursue in life?
I know we've been open to tours. We've also created some great videos on that video channel. One just recently done for Manufacturing Day takes another different dive. But I know one thing that I had just toured I've toured both the Columbiana and the Mahoning County Career Centers. They are amazing. Ask your teachers to take that tour and get the opportunity to go out. They're doing amazing, amazing things at each one of those, respectively different. And a lot of them are always paying attention to what's going on in their local communities, and then standing up the training for that. It was I walked away with an even greater sense of adventure when I got the opportunity to go through both of those facilities. And I think based on schedules and that you can certainly get the chance to go through those.
Got you. And thanks again for mentioning the YouTube channel. I had the chance to bop through Humtown's YouTube channel, and then there's some very cool stuff on there. So after we wrap up here, if you guys want to check out more of those videos, very, very exciting stuff they got going on and very insightful. Now to the adult job seekers who might be watching, or the recent high school graduates, what sort of opportunities do they have if maybe they want to get a better idea of what you do? Do you welcome folks, even adult job seekers, to come in and just kind of check things out, or do you meet with them or anything like that?
I'll let Kate add to it, but I mean, we're always looking for people, part-time, and that could be a way that somebody could learn, a deeper dive on it. Certainly, our automated online, opportunity. But Kate, why don't you go ahead and fill in the gaps on that, please?
So as far as the in-person things are, at Latonia, it's a little harder. My main location is at the Columbiana office. I travel back and forth between the facilities. So when I'm taking people around on tours, it's usually as a part of the interview process. It's somebody that's, kind of, they've applied, they're kind of curious about this, the phone interview, they're like, yeah, I do want to know, this sounds like it might be a good fit for me. Then we do that in-person interview, and we go around and we take tours, and here's what's going on. We've done the video recordings that show, a day in the life of a finisher at Humtown Additive and at Humtown Products, being able to look at both of those. So, and Mark's done open houses where we've had some tours and people coming through as well, but that's usually a little bit more scheduled just because I'm not always at that facility.
And I would just add to that it, you go online and you want to apply. I mean, it's like we talked about earlier, the career exposure as a curriculum just, is only starting to emerge now by even programs like this. So the last thing you want to do is be somewhere for 40 years that you aren't interested, have a passion and a purpose and really feel engaged like you would, with your favorite sport. So it certainly would be, that would be an opportunity to, try it out, would be even to apply and take a tour.
Got you. Okay. And for any of the adult job seekers who are watching, opportunities abound?
I have positions open on, I think, every shift right at the moment out at our Latonia location, the Humtown Additive location. At 4 finishers, I have positions open in our packaging department. The packaging department hours run 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Saturday. It's just the one shift there in that department, but then I've got around the clock for the other positions open, and we're actively hiring them. Actually, we're currently accepting applications and doing interviews starting this week. So.
Gotcha. And just to remind folks, they can go to your website to apply, correct?
Humtown.com.
Humtown.com. Awesome. I don't see any other questions on the board. Any final thoughts from our panelists? Any sage advice or wisdom to pass along to our attendees?
Well, I'll let Kate have the last word. Mine is that just, if you're a teacher and you have a business friend, ask them to open their doors. I mean, it's not, we need that exposure for you as young adults, or even as adults that are looking for different. You need the opportunity to see what's out there, and Humtown has been trying to do that, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity, Jeremy, and to your team for what you're doing to create that exposure in the community. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Our pleasure.
So, and I would just say, specifically for the students and is just keep learning and find your passion. If you haven't found it yet, that's okay. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid of failing. That's how we learn. Sometimes is trying something out and being like, yeah, that was definitely not for me. And not being afraid to try something new, because you might find out that that's the thing that really sets you on fire and says, you know what, I really love this. And there's opportunities everywhere right here in our backyard. And that's one of the things I like about Brain Gain, that they're helping to highlight is all the opportunities that surround us. Don't be afraid to get out there and try something new.
Good advice. Good advice. Thank you, guys. Well, thank you
Thank
both so much for being panelists today. And thanks to everyone for attending. We are working to line up more of these Navigators events for this year. I will be sure to let everyone know what's coming down the pike as soon as we got them on the books. But until then, you can still watch all of our Brain Gain Navigators videos at businessjournaldaily.com/Brain Gain Youngstown. If you just go to our Business Journal homepage, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see workforce development. Brain Gain is right under that. Thank you again for attending, everyone, and we'll see you all next time.
Brain Gain is sponsored by Farmers National Bank and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition.